drinking my buddy's homemade wine, living Northwest wild. Hunting, fishing is my kind of style. I float the Wainuchi when it gets hot. I'm proud I own the things that I've got. I'm digging them moss bags up in the sand, and after work a cold beer in my hand, picking wild berries off God's land, and drinking my buddy's homemade wine in the Northwest wild.
Hey, good evening and welcome to Fish Out Northwest, Wayne England and Dave Calhoun.
Good evening.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great.
In studio tonight, holding down the co-host duties and responsibilities in the absence of Mr. Tommy.
A lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure.
I'm going to try and live up to your expectations.
Big flip-flops to fill.
Yeah, I didn't wear the shorts today. I didn't realize the camera angle was...
a shirt with sleeves on.
That too.
Everybody's going to actually appreciate that. It's kind of nice. And their nipples aren't showing, so
nope.
That's a good thing. Yeah, welcome back to the studio, buddy. Glad you're able to come back around and got some great stuff to talk about with you. That got that scorpion rod sitting out in front of you there. We're going to definitely spend some time talking about Dave's development of the scorpion rod and how advantageous it is to fish that particular rod with your 360 Pro Trolls and spinners and other items of hardware on the Columbia River, and you've been out doing that quite extensively lately with, I don't even want to say moderate success.
Oh, it's been good, and I brought this box, and this box is responsible for about 100 salmon this fall.
There you go.
It's been ridiculous.
It's been really good.
Yeah.
And we'll get into the limits here in a little bit. The fish keep coming; they keep bumping the limits. And oh, by the way, it's down to 12 inches. I don't know what that's all about. Anyway, kind of comical. And oh, by the way, thank you for the kokanee rod. Last time you were here, you had this blank on display, albeit clear.
Yeah, that's coming. It happens all the time. You come up with something really cool and you throw it out there, and then there's a bunch of people that want it, and I just need to know that moving forward. Yep. But the tried and true kokanee design, I mean, that's my #1 rod. Yeah. I sell more of that rod than everything, and that's, that it really shows you what's going on with our fisheries. Yeah. That walleye rods, kokanee rods, small trout rods, things other than salmon steelhead for people that get frustrated. Right. And then for people that really want to kill the salmon, I mean, it's been just epic, but we'll get into that.
Well, yeah. And 8 foot, one piece.
8 foot one piece. Anytime you can have a one piece rod, it will always outperform a two piece. Right. There's no junction, no ferrule to worry about, and they'll take the shock because it takes it through the whole blank. So whether I'm using downriggers or just flatlining that, it's perfect, and it's heavy enough to target those sockeye, Baker Lake, Lake Wenatchee, when those fish come up high, and then people that are targeting them down low. Well, it's kind of close to a steelhead plug rod. Sure. So you could get away doing that too if you're going to run, your bait and spin glows in 4 feet of water. What
do you retail that rod for typically?
I'm $100.
$100
for $100 to have an American-made kokanee rod.
100%.
100%. Yeah, and I mean I can't build them fast enough, so it's been awesome. Perfect. And I'll do that forever.
Okay, I like it. Hey, before we get too far along into the show here, and thanks everybody tuning in, it's starting to light up here on the old chat board. Fish on Northwest is presented by Better Homes and Gardens Pacific Commons Real Estate, located in Puyallup, Washington. And of course, our good buddies out there at Defiance Marine, manufacturers of the Defiance line, the Arima, and of course the Allied series. Soon coming to the surface will be the 21-foot hardtop Mustang. And, looking forward to that boat. If you haven't checked them out, go to defiance.com. DefianceMarine.com, and check out their line of boats. You will be impressed. If you're looking even for a used boat, they got quite a good inventory, but it rolls through pretty quick. Boats are selling like crazy right now. So if you got questions or things to find out, man, just give them guys a call and they'll get you dialed in. So with that, Dave, we're going to bounce around here with what's going on around the Pacific Northwest and beyond. Pretty lucrative salmon limits as of late all over the place. I mean, WDFW keeps sending out DFW as it pertains to the Columbia, but we keep getting these random updates every few days based on the performance of the fish runs. Some depends what camp you're in. Some will say, well, they completely undershot a lot of these runs and forecasts because they didn't want to eat crow.
Good.
Right?
They should.
And my mic's cutting out? I'm hearing it all the time. Are you sure? Guys, let me know if my mic's cutting out. And then you look more like a hero when it's in fact.
You have to do that. So if I'm Fish and Wildlife and I have to try to look in the crystal ball and figure out the number, you should always go conservative and look like a hero, as opposed to just letting the nets in early and then go, whoa, emergency closure, we didn't get enough. So as each fishery gets that magic number, whatever that is, just like when Bonneville gets their amount of fish over that they need to keep turning that power machine and all that money, right? Once they hit that number, it's a cleanup fishery.
Sure.
That's why they say, okay, hey, nets, you were so good before, why don't you go ahead and clean up these fish?
Mop them up.
And that's what you want to do. If you can't get rid of the nets, you have to figure out when is the best time to put them in there with the least amount of impact on ESA-listed coho and on the steelhead and the other fish that are coming through. Well, this late fishery between the A-run and B-run coho is probably the best time to put those in to target the last part of the Chinook.
You're talking about now when they seem to be doing a little mop-up fishery going on.
Yeah, and that's what they're going to do. So there's never a good time, and it seems like we're not getting rid of the nets. So the next best thing is to try to control the impact on those other fisheries. Yeah. So that cleanup fishery, that's why when they go, hey, the Cowlitz just got 5 million fish, so go ahead and have at them 6 fish a day. Or keep all the jacks because we've got way too many and too much surplus. Or they keep doing this. Well, that's good. That's an indicator that the ocean conditions were good and that these hatcheries are getting the amount of fish that they're required to. And when there's an excess, they should do it. They should open it up.
They're definitely on a number of systems meeting and exceeding escapement. So the limits they keep upgrading and updating. So basically now from buoy 10, the mouth, all the way up to the 395 bridge, your daily limit is 6, 2 of which may be adult, but you can retain both Chinook and coho, 2 adults per day. It would have been nice to have a 2-fish limit during buoy 10. It would have been real nice to have a 4-week buoy 10 window. They undershot the forecast by so much, they gave us that about 17 days or whatever it was. Right?
Yeah.
And a lot of folks were frustrated, but as those runs were updated, then we got that extra opening down at the lower end, and then once again, and now it's been open for quite some time. Just the recent update though, for whatever reason, I started reading this, and now they emphasize down to a 12-inch fish, which your jack is between 20 and 12 inches on a coho, but the limit increases and the fact it runs all the way up the river is impressive. The numbers going over the dam now, yes, they're dwindling. They're starting to dive off, but gosh, man, you can fish pretty much anywhere, and you're having great success.
Absolutely. And this year we saw more of the smaller fish. Mm-hmm. So they're talking about that smaller limit, but that may be because there's an excess of smaller jacks they definitely don't want in the system. So, I mean, that, or they just don't want you getting the smolts that are going out.
So there was a lot of, to interrupt you, I guess, there was a lot of smaller fish in Puget Sound for quite some time there on some of these Chinook-directed fisheries. We've had an abundance of jacks in some of these other fisheries, which we always know moving forward the following year, a high jack count is indicative of, hey, the following year could be really, good fishery. So, in one sense, that's not such a bad indicator. It's one that you pay attention to, right? So, moving on, again, we have additional coho limits that have been added throughout the Willapa system and all the tributaries, which we've been struggling to get coho back in Willapa and a number of the tributaries for quite some time. Now we're looking at, there's a list here of all these tributaries going into that particular area. I'm not going to read them all because it's far too many, but if you're down there in that region and you know where these little creeks and hideaways are, the coho fishing is going to be amazing. They're meeting their escapement. They're exceeding their escapement needs. Natural spawn numbers should be up. It's good to see a year cycle back through where we are having an abundance of fish showing up on multiple platforms, not just the Columbia, in other words, right? So now they're feeding into these different areas. You are going to be able to retain, I think it's 2. Yeah, you're up to 2 salmon limit hatchery, Chinook, in or coho. So you can keep 2 fish, which again, anytime we get opportunity to keep 2 fish, this is where you would like to see them monitor it at the start, set the season with a 2-bag limit. We used to be very accustomed to a 2-bag limit. Remember the back in the day?
I know. Well, but
two fish was the norm, and then we dropped to one fish, and everybody's like, "What the heck's going on?" And then we've been at one fish on so many fisheries for so long. When we do get these little bumps, I mean, we're waiting for this Grays Harbor region. Willowpaw's performing extremely well in the coho front, and now we're kind of just monitoring, see what's going on in Grays Harbor. This next rain this week should be a great indicator of what's to come. And I'm not saying we're going to get a two fish, increase to a two fish limit, but if the numbers would show that we could, by all means, we should up that bag limit.
This is the 5-year cycle. 5 years ago was the year we had that epic run of coho and chinook that came through. So 5 years later, these fish, and some of them are 3, 4, even 5 salt, whatever. This is the cycle that they talk about. And the ocean conditions being good, the blob didn't come down, all these different things. And there's a lot of different things going on with the forest fires in Oregon and hatcheries having to release fish early and things that are messing with the runs. So there's timing issues. There's fish, it seems like they're coming in later right now than they have before. And it seems like, summer steelhead starts showing up in the fall, and then you get some in the spring. And so there's all this different stuff that messes with it, which is good. I think anytime you can spread it out over different time versus everything comes in at one day,
I think one of the biggest turnarounds is in 15, 16, we dealt with those ocean conditions that were not conducive to survivability. And we had really poor survivability, really lack forage fish out in the oceans for returning fish to feed on. I know 2017, after the blob was present for 2 years, that 2017 humpy return was just dismal. And so, moving forward, I hope that these later fisheries that are starting to perform very well, even in low water conditions, are going to really take off here this next week. We got rain coming, starting in some places tonight, definitely by tomorrow, through Sunday, going to bump your rivers by 1,000 to 1,500 feet. That drop next week, midweek, I suggest calling in sick. It's going to be lights out.
And when you call in sick now, people just let you have the time off.
So make plans accordingly. All right. October's here, Dave. There's plenty to pay attention to. There's a lot of options. I'm going to run down a couple of them. We got another Washington Beaches clam dig that will take off again October 16th through the 21st. The clamming is going to be phenomenal. Talking with my buddy Larry Phillips, who will join us later here on the show, director at Region 6 here at WDFW. In discussion, last spring we talked about 5.3 million clams availability. Because of the lack of digs due to COVID and all that, that number's been bumped up in inwards about 10 million available clams on the Washington beaches combined, which gives you a top number of well over exceeding 20 million clams, because they monitor it as such and give you opportunity on only a percentage. So the fact that we got 10 million to go after, and we have a number of dig dates all the way into December, and these are night digs because of the minus tide in the evenings, but bundle up, and it doesn't take you long when there's that many clams.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. So that, again, that first night will be October 16th, so that's not too far away. October 17th is a huge day, opening day of hunting season, waterfowl. And that waterfowl first opener is open from the 17th to the 25th, then we have a couple days shutdown, and then it opens back up the 28th through the remainder of the season, January 31st. So we get that first week window, 17th, going to be a lot of guys and gals out there blasting birds, but not to mention Modern Firearm opens for deer. I'm not getting out opening day, but shortly thereafter, within that week, and it extends into November this year.
Yeah.
Okay, so that could be a game changer for many. October 30, 31st, especially over on the west side, going up to Blacktail, is go time. You start trickling into the first couple days of November, that can be an absolute game changer. Oh, did I just lose my mic? I think I did. No? So that is exciting and to look forward to. Right now we are in the midst of muzzleloader for General Elk. Start October 3rd. You got one more day, tomorrow, October 9th. So, and then of course, General Elk season, Modern Firearm, October 31st through November 8th or 15th, depending where you're at and which units you are hunting. So, tons to choose to do, not to mention all the fishing that's going on. With this weather change, getting some rain, gonna dampen down the woods, and then we're gonna get back into nice weather. That third week of October, Sunshine, mid-60s, down into the 40s at night. Very conducive for fishing and hunting. Weather patterns are going to be ideal after this bump of rain here this next weekend. Whether you're, getting after your hunting or you're hitting the rivers, that third week of October is going to be good.
Yeah, there's some good stuff coming.
So speaking of hunting, I was digging around looking at some numbers and I found this to be interesting. If it seems at times you're out in the woods crawling around, there's lots of dudes and ladies creeping all around and people toting guns. There's a reason for that. The numbers are in from WDFW. And interestingly enough, as we fight through different things as it pertains to management, and we feel as though at times when you talk to a lot of people, Dave, they're frustrated on certain levels with different elements of management throughout fishing game. Okay, that's no surprise.
Right.
I mean, it is what it is. And so there's frustration. There's persons that say, "Well, I'm done hunting Washington State. I buy Idaho tags. I buy Montana. I go to Montana every year. I'll go hunt the coast of Oregon for big blacktail. Whatever it is, whatever your choice is." Well, apparently there's people filling your shoes because there's a number of folks that are picking up a gun or a bow or what have you, and they're getting after it. So for 2020, the total purchase of your various big game license, which is your big four, 113,400. So just shy of 113,500 in there, right? If you go back to 2019, that number was 105,000. 2018, it was 99,000. In 2017, it was just over 86,000, which, my friend, is an increase of persons. This is just reflective of the big four license purchase. That is an increase of 26,000 in 4 years.
I have a theory.
You do?
I do.
Oh, people are like, I need food?
Well, this is what happens. So, back in April, May, we're thinking, hey, stores may be shut down. People couldn't get toilet paper. And so people are like, you know what? Maybe I should be stocked up on water. And maybe I should go out and shoot an elk or a deer and fill my freezer. Because if I can make my own food, then I'm not dependent upon stores.
Toilet paper?
So I think a lot of people that may have been like on the fence about that kind of stuff are now getting into it and saying, hey.
Back into it.
Exactly. They they go, hey, I may need to, provide for myself.
Let's face it. If this COVID thing hit and you're like, doggone it, I better give me a hunting license next year and fill my freezer.
Well,
and I've never hunted.
And don't think there weren't people that said, hey, this is like Alaska, that sustained thing where you basically go out and shoot something in your yard just because it's emergency rules that you've been given yourself,
Just because we're talking hunting. I thought an increase of 26,000 folks purchasing licenses. And then percentage-wise, we're up drastically. This one is kind of weird. Second bear tag sales are up 217%. So apparently, once you've tasted bear, you want another one.
There's a joke there, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, you want another one. So anyway, the numbers keep going up. And plenty of folks are buying fishing licenses too, as would be proven. That was mostly driven due to the COVID deal. There was nothing else to do. Matter of fact, you could even go fishing for a while.
Yeah, well.
Thank you, Governor Inslee.
Well, not only that, I couldn't fish in Washington, but then I had bought my Oregon license, and the day I bought it, they go, oh, by the way, we're going to close Oregon to Washington people. Right, yeah, so I couldn't even go down there and get fish.
Not even with my passport, I couldn't get in.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to jump out with a quick break. We're going to fix these mic problems or whatever is going on that folks are replying to, and we'll get it all taken care of. So don't go anywhere. Stick with us through the break. We'll be right back here on Fish on Northwest.
Defiance Marine is the one-stop shop for the Pacific Northwest angler. Whether you are looking for a small skiff to fish the Sound or rivers or a huge offshore tuna machine, Defiance Marine has it. At Defiance Marine, be sure to power your boat with a Honda outboard package. Take advantage of the reliability and 5-year top-to-prop warranty on your Honda outboards. Our service department is always here to help and serve you as the customer. Did you know Defiance Marine has boat financing experts to help get you the best term rates on your new boat purchase? If you need financing for that new boat, call us today. We guarantee the best price, best service on a repower for your current boat. Defiance Marine is a Honda Premier dealership and one of the largest on the West Coast. Defiance Marine also carries all the gear that you will need. Everything from auxiliary kicker motors to fishing tackle and bait. Defiance Marine has certified technicians that are top-notch at their job. Some of the best in the Pacific Northwest at evaluating your boat issues and problems. Stop in today or give us a call for all your needs at Defiance Marine.
Hey, welcome back, Fish on Northwest. We're dialing up the phone here and hopefully we make a connection. I got you?
You got me.
Hey, there you go. Larry Phillips, Director of WDFW Region 6 Office. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well.
We're just struggling through a few mic problems. Dave's over there juggling a couple mics, trying to, get things situated here and make sure that it's not rubbing and irritating and noisy and walking over each other. So anyway, it looks like we got it resolved. Glad the phone connection worked, and we're ready to do this thing. So appreciate you taking time out tonight, buddy. I know you got a lot going on, but we got some stuff we want to talk about. And I had called you just to kind of get an update on a few things, and you and I get on the phone and we talk about 20 different things, it seems. First, I want to just kind of back up and talk about last year as we rolled out of north of Falcon. We knew some of this stuff was coming, and then once we finally get there, it kind of reminds you that this was some of the decisions that had to be handed down to come to agreement on these fisheries. I got to tell you, I've had a lot of folks contact me, Larry, as of late with the frustration with that lower Puyallup fishery, simply because I guess the best way to explain it is we've become pretty used to and accustomed to the sharing of the resource, that 3 to 4 day split. After it was recognized years ago to prevent gear conflicts, we'll fish 3 or 4 days, then the tribes get 3 or 4 days to conduct their commercial fishery. And we flip back and forth in that lower 7 miles of the river. And this year, for whatever reason, there's a 2-week complete closure of that lower 7 miles of the river between mid-September and the end of the month. How did we land there? Any idea? Can you remember back to in those negotiations on how do we have to give up 2 weeks of fishing on a so heavy, dense populated area such as the Puyallup River?
Yeah, Dwayne, that's a tough one for a lot of folks to handle. Obviously, when we're sharing impacts and we're trying to develop fisheries that support both tribal and recreational opportunity, it's a give and take. And you don't have to look back too far and talk to our enforcement and talk to some of the tribal enforcement to understand some of the challenges with gear conflict in those areas. Now, certainly the tribe's not fishing 7 days a week. And, obviously we've got some challenges with impacts, also Chinook impacts in the Puyallup River. So, the way this pencils out is, we look at the total number of the harvestable fish. We look at our incidental mortalities associated with our fishery, and we develop a fishing plan that gets us there. We have difficulty in particularly our terminal fisheries. Those are the extreme terminal, which means river fisheries. Obviously, we've got targeted fisheries on these same stocks through the ocean, through all the way down through the straits. And as they get into those areas, every encounter you have of an unmarked fish has a mortality associated with it. And those are the challenges we face today. So, it's a combination of meaningful opportunity in terms of leveraging those impacts, those wild impacts, in a way that gets us access to harvestable coho, harvestable hatchery fish, and I can certainly get you the modeling impacts of those fisheries, but those are the casualties of ESA and those popular fisheries in places like South Puget Sound.
Yeah, and I guess to summarize that, we have to look at it from more of a global perspective, and that recreational opportunity begins clear out of the straits and beyond, and as those fish migrate and pass through all those different zones of opportunity, they're getting schwacked on by recreational. And if you unfortunately don't have a boat and you are one that lives and resides in the area of the Puyallup and that's your fishery that you rely on, it's unfortunate that those last in line take a hit. But to be fair, Puget Sound fisheries are modeled, and there's been some things that didn't exactly go as folks would like to see them either. So I know it's a tough battle. It's hard for people to understand how that decision comes to be, or if that's your fishery, you feel like you're taking the brunt of it. If you're planning on fishing winter blackmouth this year as we roll into winter, and now you're not able to, you feel like you're taking the brunt of it. So it's kind of shared across the board, but nonetheless, it's frustrating, and we certainly hope we can look at maybe getting that back. my fear is once we get a 2-week closure like that mid-season, that is here to stay. But I guess the fish runs would dictate that hopefully in the future, wouldn't it?
Yeah, those are tough challenges, tough decisions that we have to make. You hit it right on the head. The reality is that I'm fortunate, you're fortunate, Dwayne, and you've got we've got boats and we've got opportunities to kind of be maybe a little bit more, be able to chase some of those fisheries. But the reality is a lot of folks don't have those opportunities. And, when we don't have fisheries in areas like that, it's not that those fisheries move other places. It's just they don't happen. And the folks, they don't get to partake in those.
Right. Okay. So moving on, as of late, one discussion that I typically bring up with you from time to time is the status of the Skokomish River. We recognize that we have not, as of yet, had that, been put back towards the recreational opportunity. And again, because of what hey Josh, we're fine. Did you cut it out again? Sorry to interrupt, Larry. Anyway, so the rub there is it was closed out quite some time ago, and for whatever reason we can't seem to get the Skokomish back. Now, a lot of folks would look at that and say, I would just wish WDFW would do their job and get us that Skokomish back. But there's actually quite a bit of information that's been circulated out there. There's definitely a letter, a 10-page document that was submitted. I got it right here in front of me, October 3rd of 2019. This information was sent out. And the reason I look at this is because I look at opportunity that it would seem that we're not getting. Although we also look at the amount of fish and the monies that are put into that region or system. There's 100,000 Skokomish fall Chinook released into Weaver Creek. There's 11,500,000 Hood Canal chum released into that region. We have funding from General State Fund, Aquatic Lands Enhancement, Tacoma Public Utility, 300,000 Skokomish fall Chinook, over 500,000 coho received and reared in that system, and 3.2 million Hood Canal chum, to just summarize some of the numbers. That's a lot of fish that move and migrate through that system. And a lot of guys, as you would know, would really love to get that bank fishery back on the Skokomish. But before we get to where it's actually landed and how this is progressing or not, let's talk about the increased opportunity where a lot of these fish migrate on through that recreational does in fact have opportunity, if you can look at it that way.
Yeah, thanks, Dwayne. It's a sensitive issue. Obviously, I think we've been really clear with the tribe and with clearly with the letter that you got, and I think a lot of folks have seen that. The letter was circulated to a lot of the sports groups, and discussions have continued to happen about kind of what the status of that is. Just so folks know, we provided a letter. Really, we're asking the Department of Interior to rethink their opinion. The Solicitor General of Bureau of Indian Affairs provided an opinion to the tribe that supported their claim that the reservation extended to the southern boundary or southern edge of the river. We quickly hired an anthropologist and started looking at the available information, and we disagree with that position and have asked the Department of Interior to reverse that. Clearly the tribe feels strongly about their boundary that they believe is accurate, and so we're going to have to follow through with that process, and our fingers crossed that we can get something determined soon. But in the meantime, as you pointed out, we do have a significant amount of hatchery production that was contributing to fisheries in the Hood Canal and specifically the lower Skokomish River. Now, the good news is that most of the production you listed off a few minutes ago, or much of the production, comes from, not just the lower river, but it comes from in Hood Canal in general. But still, the production from George Adams is available for harvest outside of the river, but currently under the current plan, it's not. And just so your listeners know, it's critical that we have those large hatchery programs that contribute to the ocean, what we call the mixed stock fisheries, right? As you know, the fisheries in the ocean are constrained by limited stock. And if you have large hatchery programs, your per encounter impact on a ESA listed fish that's constraining is lower. It's just by probability. And so those are hugely important to those fisheries, but that doesn't, again, get back to that person who fishes off the bank and historically did it. Mm-hmm. And those are important fisheries to them. It was really popular. You know, it's 4,000 or 5,000 people in a weekend could participate in those fisheries. And, you know, we want to get back to some opportunity here.
Well, I found it interesting in reading through the letter that it's emphasized that, you know, we recognize the principles and values and fully respect and appreciate the Skokomish tribe's stance on this, and believe, you know, they're coming at it from a perspective of what they feel is the right position and boundary on the river. That being said, the Department of Interior updated its analysis regarding the status of the river bend forming the reservation boundary, and they're you know, looking at historical value. And it's interesting that within the documentation it's stated, you know, they're looking back at surveys from 1873 to truly bring up the historical documents to determine exactly where this boundary is. So I appreciate the fact that there's been so much work done to this. Has it been 5 years now that it's been closed? I'm trying to recall.
Dwayne.
You lost me?
Nope, you're back now.
Okay. So it's been 4 or 5 years, but there's been a ton of work that's been done. And we know how these court proceedings can go and take some time, but you know, it looks like it's landing at the federal level at this point. You guys are just waiting. So in other words, for all those that are, you know, bashing WDFW to say, why can't you get something done? Why can't you make this happen? Why are we not able to fish the Skokomish? I would like to tip my hat to you and say there's been a lot of work and effort done in this regard, and it's above you guys right now just waiting for an answer. So I appreciate the effort that's going in there.
Yeah, I thanks for that, Dwayne. I know, you know, it's while, you know, I appreciate that, it's still frustrating for a lot of folks that used to fish it. I hear from people, you know, still once a week, somebody will call me and say, hey, what's going on with that? So we hope to have some resolution at some point. Clearly, you've captured it. We support the tribe's opportunity and right to fish, their treaty right to fish there. This is not about that.
Yeah.
This is about an in common with fishery, and you know, we hope we can come to a resolution that supports opportunity in the lower river.
Before we bounce out of here, we're about running out of time. Let's give folks a quick update relative to crabs and clam digs. There's a great opportunity coming up on clams, but the crabbing is also, the winter crabbing is looked to be outstanding, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, it's one of the things that I think it's the word's out, and it's, you know, a lot of people have always participated in some of the winter crabbing. I'm specifically referring to Grays Harbor, Willapa Bay, and the Lower Columbia. You know, we have a large commercial fishery that takes place every year off the coast, supports, you know, $20 to $40 million of economic stimulus, economic benefit to those coastal communities. But it doesn't typically kick off until, you know, somewhere in the December, even into January, depending on price and the condition of the crab. So between now and that time, and even after that time, you know, there's still some opportunity afterwards. But boy, if you're a crabber and you're looking for something to do, that's a great opportunity. You know, maybe make a weekend out of it and go out there and get a room or go catch some razor clams, dig some razor clams. You just touched on that. We've got about 17 million razor clams to dig on the coast this year. That's the non-treaty share of recreational share of clams. 10 million on Long Beach alone, and then 7 million scattered between the beaches to the north. So tons of opportunity. So far, we figure we've had about maybe 30,000 digger days so far. And I think, as you pointed out, lots of success, and people are just really enjoying, you know, some sort of resemblance back to normal. So I know I'm gonna try to get out there on the next dig. Nighttime. Yeah. Always an adventure out there in the dark and weather conditions and all the fun that is. You bet. Well, hey, appreciate the info. Keep doing what you're doing. Due diligence will pay off. I know we'll get that Skokomish back in the future, and look forward to getting on the riverbank one time again. So have a great evening. Thanks for checking in, bud. Absolutely. Have a good night. Yeah, we'll see you.
All right, Larry Phillips, Director, Region 6 Office, WDFW, longtime friend, and we're kind of scattered here. I'm trying to get through this. We're fighting microphone issues and hearing issues. I lost him there for a bit, but I think we got the gist of it. It didn't go as swimmingly as I was hoping for, looking through my notes and trying to hit all those points, but the gist of it is this has been in litigation, and it's at the federal level. So, guys, if you think the agency isn't doing their job, their due diligence to get this fishery back for the recreational folks, you're mistaking. We are, they're waiting alongside with us, Dave, trying to get this back. It's a popular fishery, and I didn't do it all that often, but I can tell you the benefit of that fishery when it comes to fishing bobber and eggs for Chinook. These are really good biters until the cannonballs start getting lobbed and the long leaders. Prior to that, though, and the last season we had it there, they gave you a boundary area of bobber and bait only. Restriction for a couple weeks, and the fishing was absolutely lights out phenomenal. So we really want to see that fishery come back. They are producing a tremendous amount of fish. I don't know if you caught all that, but between the chum and bump and coho and the Chinook numbers, they are kicking out a ton of Chinook. And the importance there, as Larry kind of alluded to, those fish, as they migrate on up through Puget Sound, when they come back, those numbers of fish add big numbers on some of our returns for recreational folks to have an opportunity on them throughout all of Puget Sound as they migrate on through. So it's an important it's an important hatchery system and program. That entire Skokomish watershed is valuable, and we would just like to see that terminal area and that in-river fishery come back. So hopefully they'll get their results soon. All right, we'll jump out for a quick break. We come back, put you in the hot seat. We're going to talk about the scorpion rod, some of the Columbia fisheries, some of the hardware you're trolling, what the difference this scorpion thing does. I think it's all in your head.
Yeah, we'll see.
Anyway, yeah. All right, jump out for a quick break. We come back. We'll break down the old scorpion with Dave Calhoun right here at Fish Hut Northwest.
An Outdoor Emporium is the largest local outfitter in the Northwest since 1975, providing thousands of people affordable outdoor gear. This summer, make your next outdoor adventure more affordable by shopping at our warehouse-style pricing. We are a local Scotty dealer, offering sales, service, and repair. Located in Fife and Seattle, come visit us today. The outdoors await you.
It's easier than ever to browse homes and connect with an agent on the go with Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate's mobile app. With the app, your home search is synced across all of your devices, so you can pick up your home search anytime, anywhere. Take full advantage of an enriched, mobile-optimized map search experience. Use location services to quickly find homes near you that match your search criteria. Draw your own map boundaries to find homes in a specific area, and apply layers to view school districts, neighborhoods, zip codes, and more. The app's user-friendly design makes it easier than ever to find a home you'll love. Narrow down your search results, save your search criteria, and save your favorite homes. You can browse your saved homes in a list view that puts photos and key details like price and square footage right at your fingertips. Or check out your saved homes displayed on the map.
Welcome back to Fish on Northwest. Dwayne England, Dave Calhoun in studio this evening doing the co-host duties for Mr. Tommy Donlan, who is out gallivanting in the woods. Appreciate you guys all hanging in there. We got a result. Funny thing, Dave, you turn your microphone on and people can hear you.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you heard that if you had your earphones on. So, year and a half of doing this, turn your mic on. People can hear you. It's kind of an interesting revelation. I'm going to write that one down. Speaking of notes, a couple things I wanted to mention at the opener. We got kind of bogged down in this whole technological difficulties that we were riddled with. Hopefully a lot of you caught the Gubernatorial Debate last night. Not sure who you're voting for, but our buddy, our pal, Lauren Culp did a fantastic job holding his own with Governor Inslee, and it was a great debate. Respectful on both camps, and just very well handled. Some of the moderators are a little questionable, but Brandy Cruz, you knocked it out of the park. You did fantastic. So Lauren has become a friend and is one to pick up the phone and have a conversation with. Great guy. He's asked to come back on the show. And because all you folks are so passionate about fishing and hunting, as he is, Dave, he is a true outdoorsman. Next week, we're going to try to do it on a separate night of the week, aside from our normal Thursday night show, just to kind of give it a night of its own and not take up one of our evenings. But as it would be, his schedule is so compact right now. The fact that he called and would like to come back on the show is like, yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, you're the Republican candidate running for the seat of governor in the state of Washington, and you're asking to come back on Fish Hunt Northwest to address you folks. So he is coming back on the show next week, the 15th. It'll be an hour and a half or however long it takes, one-on-one, me and Lauren in studio. Get your questions ready. I'm going to put some work into this and really take time to pick up on your questions. Send them to us here at Fish Hunt Northwest via Messenger. Throw them up on our main page just with a series of questions if you have them. We're going to take those all in and kind of streamline them down and present him kind of segment after segment with a lot of your questions and concerns, especially if they're more so around fishing and hunting and access to public lands and those types of things, water preservation, habitat conservation, all those things, because he is a strong proponent of clean water, clean air, and preserving our environment. And so all of those relate to what we strive for here at Fish Hunt Northwest. And yes, because he is running for governor, Dave, we will probably dip the toe in the political pond, so to speak, and cover a number of topics because there'll be a lot of folks tuning in from the Culp camp on Culp for Governor. 60,000+ people tune in to Culp for Governor, and he's got a tremendous following. So next week, the 15th, we will have Culp here in studio once again, third time in studio here at Fish Hunt Northwest. So pretty happy about that. Looking forward to that interview and conversation with our good buddy Lauren. Also, one that I want you guys to pay attention to. This is kind of interesting and a first that I'm aware of. There's an organization called Fish Northwest. We are Fish Hunt Northwest. This organization, nonprofit organization called Fish Northwest, they actually filed a lawsuit this last week in the U.S. District Court in Seattle. And they are challenging the 1972 Bolt decision. Believe it or not, we have recreational anglers in a nonprofit organization that is taking the state to court based on the Bolt decision, and they're fighting for our respective 50% of that agreement. There are many of us who have felt over the years that we are falling shy of our entitled 50%. I've often asked the question, hey, who's at the table representing us? Because I don't feel like I'm getting represented very well at times, right? At times it seems we get our ass handed to us at the North of Falcon process, and that conversation with Larry on the heels of last year's decisions, we're seeing it now come to fruition. The lack of 2 weeks opportunity on the Puyallup, this Skokomish thing continues to be closed, no blackmouth fishing in Puget Sound in certain areas through the winter. So these little hits and jabs that just keep coming, you at some point as a recreational angler, you feel as though, hey, where's my voice? Are my constituents listening to me? Are they taking my concerns forward? Is any of this even worth it? Do we even fight anymore, right?
Yeah.
Or we just a bunch of sniveling whiners and, we're never going to get to go home with our ball. So this organization, Fish Northwest, they filed this lawsuit, and we're going to pay particular close attention to this because it's a first. I assure you, I've not seen this type of litigation on behalf of the Bolt decision previously. So it's very interesting. And I will actually have one or two of the gentlemen on later in the month, late October. I think the last show in October, we're slated to have that conversation to see where it's going, what the genesis of it was, what they're really trying to establish, or what they hope the end result is. So pay attention to that one. Go to Fish Northwest on their Facebook page, or go to fishnorthwest.com and check out all the stuff they got going on with that organization and read up on this lawsuit. I think it's going to be an interesting one. Okay, enough politics for tonight, Dave. Let's talk about that scorpion rod that you were holding. You designed this rod specifically after you spent quite a bit of time out on the Columbia River fishing the 360 flasher and understanding the cadence of that particular device and what you're striving for, and you thought, I should build a rod that's going to accent the ability of this dodger or flasher to do exactly what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, well, yes and no.
Okay.
It was an accident.
What? You never told me that.
Yeah, well, so I was trying to make the best Pro Troll rod I could. The rod, this design, this is a 9-foot one-piece rod,
okay,
which has so many benefits, and it has one huge drawback.
Storage.
Travel. Transportation,
right,
travel. It's not practical. So it's not something I'm going to be selling to the East Coast. It's not something, it really is just for us. Northwest rods, built in the Northwest for the Northwest, right?
Right.
So the way a Pro Troll or a short bust flasher or even the Leo flashers, whatever flasher you like, the way they work is on a drag system. There's a certain amount of drag that the flasher causes when it's being pulled through the water. Each one has a different system, 1 fin, 2 fin, just a different angle to it. And the idea is that it's going to whip around, not just go in a circle. You know, a regular triangle flash like a fish flash, they just spin on an axis.
They spin on an axis, yep.
And that's fine. And those work great for things like herring. That works great when you can't control your speed. So if you're out in the jaws somewhere and you've got this horrific current going and you can't get one of these to work at the right speed, that's where fish flash and herring is king, right?
Gotcha.
A lot of the coastal guys use that. When you've got an incoming and you can either back troll with it or control your speed, that's when a 360 flasher comes in. And I don't care which one you use. I mean, they all work, but they all work at different speeds and different drag. So the idea is if I'm going to put a Pro Troll out, I should have all 4 Pro Trolls out. Not one guy using a short bus and one guy using this brand and that brand, because they all work at a different speed.
Right.
So having the rod that has an action that you can tune with any of these is important. A carbon fiber rod has the same report as it does going down. So it'll just whip, 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 and the thing's just doing circles like a blade, like a helicopter.
Gotcha.
A full fiberglass rod.
Very consistent, just a circle.
The same going down as it does come up. It's
right,
just the same speed. The material just has the same energy in it.
Right.
A glass rod that's all glass or mostly glass will go down slower. It takes more drag to get it to come down, and then it comes back a slow. So you got to speed up a little bit. You have to try and tune it.
So that's your difference between glass and fiberglass. Glass and graphite.
Glass and graphite, right. So to mix those and find the right mix in the rod is the key. And building blanks is like making cookies. It's all formulas. It's this much flour, this much chocolate. It's how long you cook it, at the temperature you cook it. And there's things you can do to it.
Interesting.
But the material, the raw material that I use, which I call the scorpion material. The rod is the scorpion, but it's the material that's the key to this.
Right.
It's a hybrid of the materials, and that's something that's proprietary to me that only I use in this rod.
Okay.
And plug rods in general. Now that kokanee rod doesn't need this blend.
Right.
I don't need it to whip back and do what this rod does.
Okay.
So that's a mainly glass rod, and that thing makes those smaller fish seem stronger and bigger, and it has backbone. Where a full glass rod just seems like it's flexing in the handle. So there's different recipes in these. But this scorpion material, the way this rod, if you hold this, we'll do a little show and tell here. So the way this rod loads up when you've got that weight, it'll load up like a glass rod, but it recoils back because of the carbon fiber. Yeah, the more carbon fiber I put in it, the faster it's going to go. I don't want to go too crazy fast.
So it loads slow, but twitches back quick. Right.
So what that does to your flasher, so you're going to get a 1/1000, 2/1000. It's whipping the flasher. So instead of doing this, it goes whip, whip. That little bit of speed change is what makes that spinner or that spin fish just jerk a little bit at the end.
Gets that little snap to it,
That makes them crazy. And I've run this with a standard, even my own rods. The rods I was building before this rod were either more carbon fiber or more glass.
Right.
And they didn't do this whip.
They had just a continuous, very cadenced,
same up, same down.
Non-interrupted, right? So
exactly.
That spinner is behind that flasher, but it's just maintaining that constant status.
And we'll still get bit. It's not like it doesn't work, like, oh, if you use anything else, it won't work.
No, it works.
And you can get different tunings with different flashers, messing with your weight and stuff, but whatever you do, you better do it on all 4 rods.
Yeah.
Or you're going to be like, wow, that one's on fire.
Yeah.
Well, what rod is that?
Well, but you prove that too, because when you built these rods, you took them out. You put scorpions on one side of the boat, you put regular graphite or glass rods on the other side. You fished for a day. And you kept track of how many fish you were catching on which rods. Yeah. You would switch, you would take the gear off those rods, and you would switch it and you would switch the rods to the other side of the boat and switch the gear.
Oh, more than that.
And it, right?
Well, what we did was we changed flashers. We changed the spinners. We tried to prove it wrong, that it wasn't the rod. And we found it was the rod, and it was a certain flasher that seemed to work better than others, and a certain spinner that worked better than others. And once we put all 4 of those on, you're having doubles and triples.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I have a theory about the bow rods being the attractors that bring all the fish to the boat, and then they hit the middle and the back ones as they get there, right? And so, but when your bow rods
bring all the fish to the boat.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So when we ran the short bus flashers and the Pro Trolls were getting hit more.
Yeah.
Is it because of the E-chip? Is it because of the fin? I don't know why. It just was.
Yeah.
If we would have had, I mean, we hooked 180 fish in 4 days.
Unbelievable.
Which it was unbelievable. There was a biomass of fish under us, and that's the time when you can get into the R&D mode and say, okay, we've hooked so many fish.
Right.
I've always wanted to see if this works.
Right.
And you put it out and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Then you change it and put what you had back on and it gets hit, and you're like, okay, that's a good indicator. And it's hard to have those days where you feel like, hey, we've caught so many fish, let's play. Let's see what works and what doesn't work.
You got to take advantage of that opportunity, though, because when you don't have enough fish and you're struggling for bites, that's not the time to test gear, because now you're like, well, I guess these don't work. And that's a false negative, right?
That's right. I mean, what's going to get hit is what you put out all the time. I mean, that's the odds.
Yeah.
But the fact that this 9-foot one piece, and it's about the fact that it's a one piece also. I make it in a 2-piece. Is it good? Yes, it absolutely is. Is it as good as the one piece? No. I can't make it whip exactly like this does. And it's the material, it's the one piece, it's everything in this rod.
Well, the interesting thing is you key in on, as you expressed it, what does it do to that spinner? It's not about, I mean, it is doing it to the rotating flasher, but at the end of your terminal gear, it's what it's doing to that spinner. And we know for a fact, like, how many times have you been fishing bobber and eggs and you're going through the hole, and right as you get to the end of the drift and you just start to reel up, elevation change, bam, you get hit, right? And there's twitch and jigs, right? Elevation change or cadence change. Anytime you're doing something that is just a repetitive cadence, and then you make a change. You change boat direction. You change speed. You either raise or lower your gear. And all of that, when you're downrigger fishing, you know, speed change will cause gear to rise and fall. Taking turns will cause gear to rise and fall, and speed change. So that is a trigger point many times to get bit. And a lot of guys will just troll a straight line, never change anything. Their gear is just, and you will get bit. As you expressed, you will get bit. But that subtle difference, that subtle change in the way it whips that spinner or that spin fish or whatever it is you're dragging behind that Pro Troll and this Scorpion rod, that's a game changer.
Well, there's even more fine tuning on this, because there's I call the rules to the 360 flasher. Minimum 8 ounce. Maximum 16 ounce. Okay. The minimum 8 ounce is about an anchor point for this flasher to do the whip and not just be pulled through the water. So if you have less than 8 ounces on that and you are trying to whip this Pro Troll, when it loads up with that amount of drag, it'll pull the weight before it does the whip. It's got too much tension on it to do that. So 8 ounces is the minimum. I see guys trying to run them 4 and 6 and run them far behind the boat. It doesn't work. 8 ounce minimum. 16 ounces puts that thing almost straight down under the boat. If you don't have a little bit of line angle, you're really not letting this thing whip the Pro Troll. So imagine you've got 20 ounces and this thing is just pointing straight down on the rods that are on the side of the boat. They're not whipping. They're doing this. Okay. Right? It takes the whip action out of this. Yeah. I have guys run these on downriggers. The whip action's gone. This isn't doing anything.
The rod has no...
It doesn't, but what happens is, will it work? Yes, because it's mainly glass, and it'll take the shock of a downrigger clip, and it's an awesome salmon rod. And I have guys run these for fish, flash, and herring. And then what happens is, the fish feels that pressure of the rod wanting to pull back like it does. And so then it's not as good.
Whereas your normal, like your 10.5-foot Northwest herring rods you gave me are just phenomenal loading rods, right? That fish starts grabbing that herring, and that thing just loads up, and it's a no-brainer.
And it's the same material, but it's not the same taper, it's not the same design. So that rod will just load up and they can chew, and all day long. So if someone says, hey, I need 4 rods for my boat, 2 herring rods on the bow, and these 2 off the back. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, run them off at an angle.
Right.
So you still want to have the rod bending to give it that whip.
Yeah.
And then you'll basically dial the 2 back ones in. They'll be working a little bit better. Or run fish, flash, and herring off the bow, and run your Pro Trolls and your spinners off the back, or your spin fish, which this has been awesome this year.
By YDC, yeah.
I've been using these for 3 years.
Yeah.
I got the very first prototypes and worked, and they worked great. And they've just keep working on this design.
Yeah.
And, you know, being able to not have to worry about rubber bands, just opening this guy up and putting bait in it.
In there.
So quick and
Money.
easy.
Yeah.
And behind the Pro Troll has been awesome. Those fish, as they move up to Columbia, scent becomes more important.
Yeah.
So we get spinners out at buoy 10, and we run those out there. And then as soon as you get past that temperature line where it starts warming up, and you're moving the upper river all the way up to like Drano, Wind, and even up to Click, Deschutes, all that, that scent becomes more important.
Yeah.
And running that behind the Pro Troll, same thing. It whips the crazy little thing back there, and it's not, instead of just doing a circle, changing the length.
Jumping around a little bit.
Exactly. The shorter leader I'm running off of this Pro Troll to the spin fish or the spinner, the more it's going to jump around.
Sure.
So if you got really super clear water, yeah, you can run 24 to 30 inch. If you've got pretty dark water and you're really trying to get it closer, the closer you get, the more action, and the closer you are to that flasher, and that can be the difference between catching fish and not when the water conditions are difficult.
Very good point. I will be deploying more of those spin fish over the next couple of weeks out in front of the drift boat on a jet diver. Did it early fall, and let me tell you, them Chinook hammer them things, and coho. So just waiting for some rain to where we got enough current flow in our tributaries to deploy that, and I cannot wait to fish those things. They work fantastic. So great stumble on the Scorpion rod. It's proven its worth, and if you guys haven't looked it up or talked to Dave about the Scorpion rod, and you are an avid angler on the Columbia River, even into some of the lower ends of the tributaries in the Columbia where you got your troll fisheries going on, this is definitely something to consider to up your game, completely change your game in the realm of pulling your Pro Trolls in your hardware. So, all right, we've run a little bit long. Josh, we're going to do this. Let's jump to commercial 4, and I'm going to get Dave Champ on the phone, and we'll come back with the Bobber-Doggin video later on the show. That makes sense? Yep. Sounds good. All right, we're going to jump out for a quick break. We come back. We're going to check in with our buddy Dave Champ, Hatchery Wild Coexist. He's also the chairman of CCA Oregon. A number of things going on. They're working on a handful of film or video projects, and he's got some updates on some other things that they have going on, some collaborations. Hatchery Wild Coexist is up and running and doing very well. I figured it's about time we catch up with him and see what's going on. So don't go anywhere. Stick through the break. We'll be back right here at Fish Hunt.
A Northwest favorite for almost 40 years, Arima Boats are manufactured with pride right here in Bremerton, Washington. Arima Boats offers all of our boats with Honda outboard packages so that you can take full advantage of the reliability and 5-year top-to-prop warranty from your Honda outboard. With literally thousands of Arima boats on the water throughout the Pacific Northwest, Arima boats are a proven hull design that offers incredible fuel economy and all of the amenities that a serious angler is looking for. All Arima boats are built without any structural wood materials. That is why we back our boats with a lifetime warranty. All of our Arima boats are designed to maximize deck space while also providing ample seating. Contact us today at Arima Boats for all your boating needs and let us help you get out on the water.
Welcome back in studio to Win England. Dave Calhoun holding down the co-host duties, doing a fantastic job, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Like you've done this before.
Once or twice.
Once or twice.
Yep.
Hey, we got our longtime friend Dave Champ on the phone. Hatchery Wild coexists, and of course, he's also chairman of the board, CCA Oregon. Dave is no stranger to the studio. He's been here a couple times and on the phone various times, as we like to keep up on all that is going on with Hatchery Wild coexist. How you doing there, buddy? I know you're on the road driving, so 10 and 2, eyes forward, and talk if you can.
Yeah, thanks for the advice. Doing great, beautiful evening. I'm just leaving the city of Salem, headed north towards Portland on I-5, and traffic is light, so I think I can keep it between the lines.
I feel like we're doing a news show, and I just got a traffic update.
We got the wind coming in from the east, and there's a
Dave on the road, right? Hey, there are a few things going on with Hatchery Wild coexist as of late. You guys are working on some video projects and whatnot. Do you get us up to speed? I know there was a GoFundMe that a lot of folks jumped on and supported, and monies were generated to help with some of these projects. What exactly are you guys working on, and what's the intent of what you're going to unveil here in the near future?
Great question, and I'm delighted to be able to share this news with your viewers and listeners. One of the things that we have wanted to do ever since Patagonia released their, I won't call it a documentary, but their 90-minute long film bashing hatcheries, basically wanting to convince the viewers of that film that hatcheries are the reason that our wild fish are in decline, which is total and complete BS.
Mm-hmm.
So the first video we're working on is going to be fairly short, 5 to 7 minutes long, debunking all of the misrepresentations and false information that was included in artificial. According to those guys, fish farms and hatcheries are the same thing,
right,
and have the same effect on our wild fish. According to them, raising chickens and raising hatchery fish is exactly the same thing.
Right.
According to them, the reason that the orcas are starving is because of our hatcheries.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have anything to do with the fact that we've reduced hatchery production by 40% in the state of Washington.
Right.
Over the course of the last 20 years.
Right.
And one of the statements that I think anybody that knows anything about hatcheries, what they do, one of their experts says, the reason that we're having this conversation is because hatcheries don't work. If hatcheries didn't work, there wouldn't be a salmon swimming in the Columbia River. 90% of the fish, salmon and steelhead, swimming in the Columbia River began their life in a hatchery. 75% of the salmon that are harvested in the Puget Sound began their life in a hatchery.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, 75% of the salmon that are harvested in the Pacific Northwest, both commercial and sport caught, begin their life in a hatchery. So if hatcheries don't work, why is it that we rely on them for all the fish, basically all the fish that we harvest?
Well, it's a valid point, and to on top of that, I know you caught the show a few weeks ago when I had our good friend David Trout on from the Nisqually Tribe, resources manager over at the Nisqually Tribe, and he went as far to say that the strain of the Green River stocks of Chinook that are now in the Nisqually River, and obviously moving forward with brood stocking and genetic testing and whatnot, they're trying to determine if the future really is to rely on that particular strain of fish, but that's a whole nother scientific battle that they're weighing, and hats off to them for doing so. But he went as far to say that the existing stock in the Nisqually River has replaced any of the previous known strains or wild stocks that previously dominated that river. That's concerning to a point, other than the fact that without them having done so, you would have no fish in the Nisqually River right now.
Right.
You know, and there's pretty much across the board Puget Sound in whole, because it's all the same genetic strain of fish that they've brought from that Green River stock and have seeded for the last 40 plus years throughout all Puget Sound region. We're dealing with the same battle, a fish that's not very resilient, although it's what we're stuck with currently, and it's what they're moving forward with. So to your credit, without hatcheries, a lot of our rivers would have nary a fish in them as we speak.
Yeah, well, 2/3 of the hatcheries that have been constructed throughout the Pacific Northwest were built to replace lost natural production.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we built 13 high-head dams on the Willamette River. Natural production basically was wiped out. So hatcheries have continued to provide salmon in the Willamette system for 100 years.
Right.
Without hatcheries, we wouldn't have any fish.
Right.
Well,
and it's interesting. Hey, have you seen artificial? Dwayne, you've probably seen it. I bet.
Yeah, I've watched it.
Artificial. Right? So what's the example that they use to demonstrate their claim that if you remove hatchery fish, you're going to see a rebound of wild fish?
There was one.
Remember?
No, there was one specific example that they leaned heavy on, and I can't recall.
So they go back to the Madison River in Montana, and a study that was done in 1974, where they removed catchable size rainbow trout, and they saw an increase in the population of brown trout. And they're using that to correlate that the same effect would take place if we remove hatchery salmon and steelhead.
Well, and I'm sorry.
The life cycle of a salmon and steelhead doesn't even come close to compare to a catchable rainbow trout. And if you stop and think about it, they're applauding the increase in non-native and invasive species of brown trout.
Right.
Well, and
Really?
to give you an example, I'm totally in with this. You know that I agree with you on all these things. And I actually have a situation where the misinformation that's being put out there is why your information is so important. I was out in front of a grocery store, and there was a lady trying to get signatures on a thing saying that she was trying to save the salmon. And I listened to her conversation with this other person, and she said that basically we have to save our wild fish and everything else. And she was trying to obtain signatures to get rid of hatcheries, and was explaining to them that the hatchery fish were hurting these what they were calling a wild fish. And if you think about the genetics of a wild river, if there was one, since we've been introducing hatchery fish since 1900 or even earlier, but she was basically passing on this information that these hatcheries were hurting our wild fish, and people are like, oh, well, I want to save the wild fish, and I'll sign it, and then being misrepresented that that's what they're doing. And then they say, well, let's close this hatchery. And we've done that on certain rivers and seen the fish just disappear. So now that we have current information that that's not a valid report, to get that information out, it takes 10 times more to get the good information versus the one that was adopted as gospel back in 75. So that's why it's so important. And Dave, you know that I support what you guys do with whether it's my rods or anything that I do, and it's important that that message gets out. So thank you.
So this next film you're working on is to counter all the false information that was put out in artificial to, truly and truthfully educate the public based on science. And, Dave, I'd go as far as to say that the importance here is not so much, well, it is important for the general fishing public, but the ones that really need to be educated are those that don't fish, who get inundated with that person standing at the grocery store speaking the false narrative and collecting signatures on a whim of persons who are completely uneducated and don't truly understand the importance of the direction that hatcheries need to continue in the Northwest, and and to bolster the opportunities for brood stocking programs as we move forward.
You're exactly right. And, you know, to Patagonia's credit, they did a fantastic job of producing this video. It is extremely effective, 90 minutes long.
Yeah.
There's no way that we can go through and debunk all of the misrepresentations, false information. It would take another 90-minute video.
Right.
And we're simply not going to do that.
Right.
But we're picking off that low-hanging fruit, these ones that are just totally and complete BS, to cause folks to stop and listen and pay attention and to understand the real facts when it comes to our hatcheries. So that's video number one. And to your point, before I move on to video number two, what we all forget about, those of us that fish, and fishing is an important part of our lives, we assume that everybody else fishes as well. Right? One priority.
Cutting out a little bit. There you go.
In Oregon and Washington, over the last decade, only about 6 to 7% of the total population buy salmon and steelhead tanks.
Yeah.
90% don't fish for salmon and steelhead. Salmon and steelhead aren't. All they want to know is they exist. That's all that's important to them. Are the salmon still there? Yep. Okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
So we've got to go to work on that other 94% and demonstrate to them how important salmon are to them. And they really, really are.
They are. So, you know, the programs, you know, it starts in the schools too, you know, with the kids. The kids take the information home to the parents and say, hey, Mom and Dad, look how important it is that these salmon survive. And, you know, remind them, because I know when most of us were kids growing up coming through school, there was at some point biology and everything else where you learn about Pacific Northwest salmon and the importance of the salmon and steelhead within the Pacific Northwest and what they stand for. But just for the whole environment, the ecological system, all of it collectively, you know, salmon are important to everybody that lives in Washington and Oregon and Idaho and throughout the greater Northwest. I mean, it is not something just because only in some cases, you know, 6 to 10%, but ideally with salmon and steelhead, as you're pointing out, 6 to 7% of us utilize the resource for recreational opportunity. The rest of them, you're right. If it's not on their radar, if they don't feel it's important, it's a hard sell to get them to understand the importance of us continuing with hatchery production, trying to bring back these fish runs.
Well, and I think the orca situation also brought some attention to that.
Definitely put it on folks' radar.
Because then people are like, oh, I like those. They're like little warm fuzzy. Yeah, I watched Free Willy, so let's save those. So then they go, hey, let's think about making more fish for them to eat. And then it changes the way they look at it. They're not thinking, oh, that's just for the dirty old fishermen.
Well, now that we got everybody so up to speed and wanting to save the orca, it's like you know, most households are all about save the orca. We need to really hit home the message that sea lions are detrimental to the survivability of your beloved orca. We got to get rid of the sea lions.
Let's flip it and say, hey, we'd like to produce more salmon so that those sea lions have more to eat.
No.
Let's flip.
No. All right, Dave, before we run out of time, what is video or film number 2?
Right. So we're doing the one countering artificial. We're going to do a series of short 1 to 2 minute informational spots for the non-fishing public to demonstrate to them how important salmon are to all of us in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
And then the main video will be 10, 12 minutes, maybe stretched even to 15 minutes, outlining why we have hatcheries, the importance of hatcheries, how hatcheries have been improved, hatchery management, the genetic effort that goes in to making sure that the fish that we're producing today are as fit as they can be for the wild environment. So they're actually helping the wild fish and not hindering the wild fish. And that's really the basis.
Yeah.
So those 3 pieces. And if we're running out of time, it's really important that I give credit to the 4 companies that have stepped up to pay for all of these videos. And that's Salmon and Steelhead Journal, Procure, Edge Rods, and Willie Boats are paying the cost of producing all of these videos. And they're currently in production right now. We're shooting throughout Oregon. We'll be shooting in Washington next week. And our goal is to have all these things wrapped up and ready to go before the start of next year's show season.
Yeah.
That's assuming that we'll be able to go to shows.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah,
We're going to have to wait and see.
Yeah.
But the goal is to have these all done and ready to be distributed publicly. And of course, we'll do YouTube. We'll be back with you guys and bumping you for airtime so
Right.
we can show these to folks and get them out there before 2021.
Perfect. Yeah. A lot of work, but definitely worth the effort. I think the education for the common person is so important to get them on our, in our camp in support to understand how truly important it is that we continue these efforts in salmon and steelhead recovery throughout the Pacific Northwest. I'm going to extend it for a few minutes here. I really want you to get a chip shot in here on your position on the board with CCA Oregon. And moving forward, obviously, you guys have some tangle net unraveling to do with the position the Washington State Fish and Wildlife Commission, in a vote of 5-4, voted in favor of returning the gill nets back to the main stem Columbia, which we're experiencing right now. I'm hearing rumblings that Oregon may not or is not probably going to go that route, which will make managing of that common shared fishery very interesting.
Well, from CCA's perspective, both Washington and Oregon, the vote that the Washington Commission took was absolutely astonishing, unbelievable how they can turn their backs on 13 ESA-listed stocks in the Columbia River and choose to put non-selective commercial gear back in the main stem.
Yeah.
When we're seeing some all-time lows on some of those steelhead stocks in the upper reaches, they're choosing to put non-selective commercial gear back in the Columbia. I mean, it just boggles my mind that they would do this, particularly at this time. Unbelievable. So we are doing everything we can. We're turning over every rock possible. We have dusted off the ballot initiative that took place, 13, 14 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We're having a look at that. That's a possibility. We're looking at potential legal action. We're looking at legislative action. Of course, we're having conversations with ODFW staff and commission staff. We're not going to go down without a fight. I can tell you that for certain.
Yeah.
And these fish are just too doggone important to roll back the clock when we've been without those non-selective nets in the main stem. It's just mind-boggling to me. But you have my commitment of CCA Oregon and Washington. They worked hard.
Sure.
They worked really hard.
Yeah.
To do everything we can to keep those nets out of the main stem.
Yeah, we basically just brushed away 7 years of effort in the realm of conservation and moving forward on that. And Washington failed miserably in the buyout program, the buyback program, and the licensing, and just the whole thing. And also any effort really put forward into working towards selective harvest measures, which it's just kind of a slap in the face. So I'm hoping and probably we will see Oregon hold their ground, which again will make moving forward the management of that shared fishery extremely interesting and complex. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if that returns Washington license holders only allowed to launch and return off the river on the Washington side. I have no idea what it looks like. I don't know if we revert clear back to how it was prior to. So it's going to be complicated at best. Perhaps a change in a change at the government level, and which will have trickle down effect on some of our commission folks in the near future. Who knows? You know, this is so garbled in political mud. It's frustrating, and especially for guys like you that put so much time in your position, Dave. Can't thank you enough for all the work you continue to do.
Well, you know, it's not an individual; it's a group effort.
Right.
And we've got some guys that have been in the trenches with this thing for the better part of their adult lives, and you know, we're not giving up. We will fight to the bloody end to do what we can to keep those nets out of the main net.
Fantastic. Well, Dave Shamp, Hatchery Wild Coexist, films coming out in the near future here towards the end of the year, beginning of 2021. Look for those. And of course, continue with your efforts and work on the board of directors of CCA Oregon. Appreciate what you're doing. And you always have a seat here in studio once we get past this COVID scare and folks are out and about and willing to come back in studio. We'd love to have you. So when those films are premiering, you make sure, I know you got my phone number. All you got to do is call.
I'll do it. And the drive is nothing for some of Sherry's cooking, I tell you. I'll be there in a heartbeat.
Attaboy. All right. Well, drive safe, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
You bet. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Take care, Dave.
Take care. See ya. Bye. Yeah, great guy. Appreciate all the work he does. He's so busy in retirement with all he's doing, right?
Yeah.
It's just crazy. Got to have guys like him on the front line fighting
Absolutely.
for what it is that we are all striving to get, return to our fisheries. All right. Gonna jump out for a quick break. Took opportunity a couple weeks ago we were out fishing because we often show the difference of vertical bobber presentation versus bobber-dogging, float drifting. In the bait lab, we'll show you how to rig it and how all those components go together. Wanted to take opportunity while we're on a nice piece of water out there on the river to show you current flow and how we approach that and the reasons for choosing, a bobber-dog or a float drift setup in this particular environment. So we'll jump out for a quick break. We come back. We're going to be out there at the river demonstrating the bobber-dogging technique. Going to show you what good bait looks like in the water, what your bait should be doing. If it's not, you're not fishing good bait. So we'll just put it that way. Jump out for a quick break. We come back. We'll be on the be at the river, taking you through some bobber-dogging techniques 101 right here on Fish on Northwest.
Allied boats are built by West Coast fishermen for West Coast fishermen. Deep V 21-degree dead rise at the transom guarantees a smooth ride no matter the conditions. Allied offers all of our boats with Honda outboard packages so that you can take full advantage of the reliability and 5-year top-to-prop warranty from your Honda outboard. Allied boats range from 19 to 32 foot in length, so no matter what type of heavy gauge boat you are looking for, we have it for you. All of our Corsair 21 foot and larger designs come standard with reverse chine that is welded inside and out with no extrusions below the waterline, so that you will never have to worry about corrosion problems down the road. Get out on the water today in a boat that you can trust and enjoy with Allied Boats. Contact us at Allied Boats today to learn much more about our incredible fishing machines.
What if there was a smarter way to search for your new home? Introducing the Better Homes and Gardens real estate website and mobile app. This revolutionary new search tool puts your needs first. Narrow your search to what matters most to your family, like school data, school districts, and even walk scores. Get easy access to your local affiliated agent, as well as unique and local insights about neighborhoods and properties directly within the app. With synced and saved preferences, you'll always pick up wherever you left off. Get your smarter search started today with Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate.
Hey guys, welcome back to Fish Hunt Northwest for this week's how-to. Not in the bait lab, we're actually out here on the river. Wanted to take advantage of this particular piece of water to show you how conducive bobber-dogging is and why I would choose to use it on this particular piece of water versus a vertical presentation in a slower moving piece of water that's ideal for holding Chinook. This piece of water behind me has some real nice flow and current to it. It has some soft edges, and it comes kind of at a collection point, right? The water is flowing the width of the river, and then it narrows down right here, kind of pushes all the current to the far side of the river, almost right from the middle to the far side. You have a real nice current seam, and between you and that current seam you have real nice deeper stable water with not a lot of current where those fish like to tuck in. I use the current seam with the bobber-dogging to draw my presentation downriver right at the edge of that current, oftentimes where those fish like to lie. The float working in conjunction with your stick lead dragging on the bottom, as I've explained so many times in the bait lab, is ideal for navigating that presentation right down the travel lane of where those fish like to lie. So basically I'm going to take this piece of water here, I'm going to show you where and how you should be casting with a float dogging presentation or bobber-dogging, float dogging, float drifting, bobber-dogging. Remember, when I'm standing on the shoreline, I like to refer to it as float drifting because I'm basically drift fishing with a float. I'm going to show you where to cast, how to work a piece of water, and basically how to mend your line properly when float drifting. First thing we start with is some good bait, okay? So here on this particular river, everything is rigged as I've shown you multiple times in the bait lab. All right, I got my top shot. I have my float stop set up there about 8 or 9 foot based on the depth of this hole. That's the travel of my bobber to where it's going to stop. Remember, the lead is dragging on the bottom, and my bait, being neutral buoyant, will somewhat float up off the bottom and be within that strike zone. Leader is about 20 inches, okay? I can run a double hook setup here, and I simply pull out the egg loop. I typically cut my bait size depending on where I'm fishing and what I'm fishing for. For coho and Chinook, I'm going to put about a 50-cent size piece of bait on there, just in the egg loop. I don't get real worried about putting it all wrapped up on the hook or putting the hook through it. I just secure it in the bait loop, and that thing is ready to fish. One thing I want to show you is how well good eggs milk out and put scent trail downriver in front of your presentation. Take a look at this. So here's our eggs in the water. See all that oil coming off of them. You can see the fluorescence actually in the water of those eggs, and you can see the milk trail. Look at those things milk out. When those are bouncing downriver, that's exactly what you want to see. You want to see that bait milking out, sending scent downriver. That's a sign of a good egg, nice and juicy, putting plenty of scent in the water, and exactly what Chinook and coho go after. So now that we got a good piece of bait on there, we're going to cast this out here and show you exactly how. So as we walk out here, I look at this piece of water, and again, that current seam is halfway across. I got some nice soft water out here about midpoint. I'm going to cast about a 45-degree upstream, and as that float comes towards me, I'm going to collect my slack, always keeping the slack line in and around the float, maybe no more than a foot or two. If you're mending it correctly, you can actually feel the tip of the rod as the weight's dragging on the bottom, okay? So we're going to cast this upriver. As it comes to me, I'm collecting my slack. Notice I keep the line up off the water, following the float. My rod tip is following the float. I mend that back towards it. Now I can go ahead and lay this braid on top of the water and just let it follow. Mending, keeping the float moving down river. Again, it's laying over because the weight is dragging, okay? So your float's gonna point down river because your weight is dragging. I'm going to throw it a little more inside in the slower water so we can talk about mending your line. Okay, to show you how we follow our float and mend our line when bobber-dogging, I'm going to throw it a little to the inside of the soft water. It's okay to leave the braid lying on top of the water, and you'll see it kind of collects in the slow moving water, and we just got to do a rod tip lift and roll that kind of allows that braid to realign so everything is following the float down river. So we're going to cast this right out here. As it comes to me, I have a couple options. One, I can pick up the slack and follow it. Now I'm going to open my spool and let it feed line. But see, in the slow water, I'm getting some line belly, so I need to lift and roll. Bring it back to the float and keep everything moving in a straight line. I always want the rod tip following the float, okay? So now I'm going to lift and roll. That brings the line back behind the float, and I can just open my spool and I allow the line to follow the float on down. Now, if I was drift fishing, that line would pendulum in, okay? But because I have a float on there, I can leave that spool open, bobber down, and I can continue to allow line to follow that float down river. We'll do that one more time. I'm gonna follow. If I need to, I can collect extra. I'm gonna roll that back, get behind it. Pull with the rod tip. Now I'm just letting out line, letting it drift. Still letting out line. You only go down as far as you feel confident that you can set a hook once that bobber goes down, okay? Probably far enough. Now, oftentimes I see guys out here on the river, and when you're fishing for Chinook and coho, sometimes they will hit that egg skein, but oftentimes, and it's been proven time and time again, a nice fresh juicy glob of eggs on there more times than not will entice a strike. So I just take that old skein off, throw that away, hold on to my bait loop. Gonna get into the bait box here, cut some eggs off. In that bait loop, all I'm doing is I'll double those eggs up a little bit and I'll put them in here. Now, I can leave that on there or I can rinse it off so it doesn't get all over my fishing rod. So we're gonna do that. And now, these eggs have not touched the water, and I do that on purpose. When I take a fresh bait out and put it on there, when this hits the water, you will see how much juice and scent and liquid come off of these eggs when they hit the water. Now that cloud of scent is traveling down in front of that bait, kind of grabs the attention of any fish downriver. Following my float, mend, get to this midpoint, I can open my spool and allow it to go down. So basically, it's just keep repeating the process. I'm gonna work this piece of water, I'm gonna start in close, and then I'm gonna throw to that far side of the seam, and then I'm gonna walk down river about 15 feet. This is a pretty lengthy hole. It's got a real nice constant state of flow to it, and it widens out down here and actually deepens up, okay? And where it deepens up, if my float is going down river and all of a sudden it goes vertical, that tells me that I've actually dropped in depth a couple more feet. I just need to move this stopper towards my reel, okay, which is gonna make my presentation from the stopper to the weight longer, which means it'll fish deeper. So anytime you're bobber-dogging and your bobber is pointing down river, you're doing great. When it goes vertical, you've just hit a drop off, reel it in, lengthen out your overall length of your presentation, and once it drops off that ledge, it'll still be deep enough to remain in contact with the bottom, allowing your bait to float within that strike zone. So hopefully that clears up a few things. I know we've shown many times how to properly rig, and essentially now taking opportunity out here on the river to show you a really good piece of water that works great for bobber-dogging or float drifting. And if it would work really great, you'd see that float go down. So All right, that's going to do it for us here out on the water with FHN. We jump out for a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hey, welcome back in studio. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Did the best we could try and capture, some of the finer points and techniques to float drifting, bobber-dogging, whichever you prefer to call it. For me, standing on the bank, as I always advocate, is float drifting because we are literally drift fishing with a float. Nice bait explosion hitting the water, huh? Yeah. I love that cloud of plume of scent that just goes down the river. Would have been icing on the cake to hook a fish in that drift, but that was a tough day. We only got into a few. Nonetheless, great day on the water, always is. And, if you're not bobber-dogging or float drifting for salmon, as you've heard me talk about before, you are definitely missing fish. You can't find them all simply suspended all the time. If you have the ways and the means, as like the Beard and I always do, we take a couple rods. One's always rigged for vertical presentation. One is always rigged for bobber-dogging. And depending, for me, covering ground, finding fish, when you're traveling and I'm on the sticks and we're rowing, the guys and gals in the boat, we are bobber-dogging because we are going from one hole to the next, long drifts, pockets. You get that presentation always in the strike zone. You're covering water. You find some fish, you anchor up. Now it's conducive to fishing vertical, right? Because you can figure out the depth of a hole. You found some fish in there. The vertical presentation will get it done, or you can just maintain what you're doing and continue doing the float drift or the bobber-dog. So.
Well, and that's going to change obviously on how many holes you have an opportunity to get to because of the amount of traffic on the river.
There could be a few.
So we're talking in this general area. We're going to say the southwest Washington area for those coastal Chinook that once they hit the tributaries. Well, down where I live, most of the time they hit the tributaries, they're already tules, they're dark, they're not worth targeting. So you move up to the coastal rivers that you have up here. And we had a 30 fish day doing just that, running eggs under a float. Yeah. We weren't bobber-dogging, we were stopping in a hole and just basically working the hole. Well, once you found them, you didn't leave because they just were all stacked up in a few places. And it was epic. I mean, 30 fish day, we're talking 30 fish to the boat. Yeah. I mean, we had multiple takedowns and yeah, it was awesome.
If folks aren't fishing eggs under a float this time of year, you are missing out on fish. Now, there's a lot of great techniques, and we're going to continue to cover a ton of them, especially as we get out this next week on the falling rivers. The salmon and coho, the Chinook and coho are going to continue to pile into these rivers, and not too far in the future, as we turn the corner and start looking at the beginning of November, we'll start seeing those chums showing up, which just add even more excitement to your day. Start tangling some of these coastal chums. So lots to look forward to. Again, this weather this weekend is going to be very conducive as we roll into the middle of next week. Get out there, whether you're fishing or hunting. Got that waterfowl opener coming up. We got blacktail deer opportunity here on the west side, and of course other species on the east side. It's going to be a great couple weeks here. I love October, Dave.
You're talking about rain coming, so a couple weeks ago when I was here, I didn't have any twitch and jig rods done. I was rushing to get those done. Oh, yeah. Now is the time. They are finished. It's perfect timing with that rain coming in. And for all the viewers of Fish Hunt Northwest.
Wait a second. Okay. Throw out a special?
I'm going to throw out a special. I'm going to do something crazy here.
Twitch and rod?
On any of my rods. Okay. But right now, the twitch and jig rod, since it's topical. It's what people are going to be wanting. Right. And sometimes guys wait till the last minute. I know this is crazy, but they wait till the last minute and call me as the river's on the drop.
I know.
Hey, do you have a twitch and jig rod? Well, I have them. Okay. So if you call me, order them, I can ship them. Shipping's $10. It's not that bad. Yeah. Even for a one-piece rod, I have the technology. Whoa. I can do it, right? Okay. So if they call me and say, hey, I saw it in Fish Hunt Northwest, they will get a special discount on any rod they purchase, and that's through the end of the year. Okay. Just say, hey, I heard you talking about the twitch and jig rod or the scorpion rod or whatever it is. Call me. I can ship them up here. It's not a big deal. But I have everything in stock right now and can do that.
So folks can contact you via Facebook.
NorthwestRods.com. Yep. My Northwest Rods Facebook. Yep. My personal Facebook. Okay. My phone number is there for everybody to use and abuse.
Dave Calhoun. You're going to get did you give a percentage off, or you're going to Northwest?
Depends on the rod.
Depends on the rod.
Depends on the rod.
Going to definitely save you some money if you call or contact Dave and say, hey, heard about the rod special via Fish Hunt Northwest. Would like to know how much you're going to get me on a twitching rod or a...
and free shipping.
And free shipping.
Free shipping. So I'll do free shipping and a discount for all the Fish Hunt Northwest guys.
Perfect. So remember that. And of course, this will continue to play for, several weeks and whatnot. And you said through the end of the year.
That's through the end of the year.
Through the end of the year, all the way December 31, you're going to save money on a specific rod that you order from Dave at Northwest Rods, and also the shipping will be free. You can't beat that. So fantastic. Good to have you in studio, man.
Good to be here.
Yeah. Anything else? Final words?
Yeah. One last thing.
Oh.
So we've got some time here. So I've had people contacting me saying that tackle shops are running out of rods and reels.
They are.
And things like that. And that blows my mind.
No.
And I think part of that is the COVID effect on the U.S. companies.
Yep.
And part of it is the stuff that's not coming from China.
Weird.
So if you ever wonder where something comes from, it's like go to Harbor Freight.
Yeah.
Walk in there and see that they have nothing in there.
Right.
Go, gee, I wonder if all this comes from China. Right?
Yeah.
I'm in a lucky situation because I'm manufacturing my own stuff.
Right.
To where I have inventory.
Yep.
I have 100 of this. I have 300 kokanee rods.
Okay.
I am producing all that stuff here locally with stuff that I've already purchased. This was done way before all this.
Yes.
So you could call me a hoarder. I mean, I don't have dead cats in the garage.
Right.
But I have been putting this stuff together, and now's the time when this really comes into play because I have all the rods ready.
Yeah.
So, now reels, I don't build reels. So on that, you're
Maybe
on your
you should
own.
start building reels.
No, stay in my lane, okay? I know where my...
The COVID 501?
Yeah.
It's a left-handed retrieve upside down?
Oh, yeah, but you have to have a line counter on it.
Right, no line counter.
So I have inventory, and that's just part of being small and independent and doing what I'm doing. So
Yeah.
I can ship these things like tomorrow.
Doing a fantastic job. All right, get a hold of Dave, Northwest Rods, Dave Calhoun on Facebook. Go to northwestrods.com. You're going to get free shipping, and you're going to save money on every rod that you order, depending on specifically which rod it is. Dave will cut you a break for sure. Remember to tell him you heard it here at Fish Hunt Northwest. That's going to do it for us. Dave, once again, thanks for jumping in this week. Fantastic
Thanks for having
to have
me,
you back in studio. I know I can pretty much call you anytime. You're like, yep, I'm good. So always a pleasure to have you in. Hey, next week, let's get it out there. Let everybody know, spread it around, and I will be blowing up our Facebook page. We're fortunate to once again have Lauren Culp come grace us with his presence in studio. The man is doing an amazing job. He has garnered a tremendous following, and a lot of people really look up to this man, respect him for what he stands for, and you should. And if you haven't heard him, you know what? Join us next Thursday, the 15th. Take some time, sit down, listen to what Lauren Culp has to say. I think you'll be impressed. So that's going to do it for us here this week. Fish Hunt Northwest. Check us out via Facebook throughout the week. Post your pictures and your successes, even your failures, and your comments. Hit us up on Messenger if you would, please. Let us be involved with you throughout your week, and especially post those pictures of the kids. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next week, Thursday night, 6 p.m., right here at Fish Hunt Northwest.